Greetings, friends. So glad you came back to see another Bible chat. So this morning I'm going to be speaking with Liz Stewart, but we have to wait on that because first I have to show you a Bible today. I have an exciting, different Bible. This is an audio Bible, and I don't know if you've seen this one, but this actually has all these people that do the different voices.
Yes.
Now, of course, you don't have to have one like that, but one thing I thought I'd mention about audio Bible is that back when the Bible was written, people didn't have books. They didn't read the Bible. Jesus did not say, publish Bibles and give them out. He said, go and preach the gospel. Now, I love reading the Bible, and that's why we're here, but it's good, I think, to hear the scripture the way they did in the early church by ear, which is why, as a matter of fact, we have so much scripture reading at Mass. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it because I don't want to trick you, but think about it for a minute, and then I'll tell the answer. So think for a moment, how many Bible readings are on Sunday Mass? So just think for a minute. Okay, so the answer is 4. Most people say 3. So there's an Old Testament, there's a Psalm, there's a New Testament, which isn't the Gospel, and there's a Gospel. And we listen to them. So listening to Scripture would be an enjoyable thing if that's the kind of Bible. Any Bible that will help you read or hear the Bible is good. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so before we start, Liz, if you could say just a little bit about what you maybe do in the parish.
Well, I certainly try to be as good a volunteer as I can be. I chair the parish council, and I serve on the St. Mary's School Council, and that, is a lot of work right now. We're going through a lot of challenges to try to make the school ready and available for everyone, and taking enrollment now. And obviously, we're all very supportive of the school, and we want to make sure that it succeeds.
And this is happening all over the country and probably all over the world.
It is. Yeah. It is, and there is just no other way to describe it but confusing.
Yes.
People, the rules keep changing very frequently, and so we're in a constant state of adapting to new regulations, new requirements. And we have to bear in mind that it is all with the purpose of keeping our teachers, our staff, and most of all our children and families as safe as possible.
Right.
So that, and then I try to do whatever other projects I'm called to do. This is a wonderful parish, and I feel very blessed to be able to be a part of it and to support it.
Well, I know that you help me a lot with different things, and I appreciate that. So this morning, Liz has chosen Elizabeth, and in case our viewers don't know who she is, could you just give a couple of sentences of what she did?
Well, what we know of her comes really only from the book of Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and in fact it is the only place in the Bible that she is mentioned. She was the wife of Zechariah and the cousin of the Virgin Mary.
Yes, that's right. And the mother of...
And the mother, most of all, of John.
John the Baptist. Okay, so why did you choose her?
Well, I chose her because, my grandmother was named after her, and so was I. And my grandmother always said to me, this is the saint you will most identify with. And as a young child, I thought, okay. But in later life, she was exactly right. I do identify with her very, very greatly.
So before we start, I'm sorry to interrupt us, but did you dislike or did it bother you that there are so many shortened versions of Elizabeth the name?
Well, no, because I'm one of them. Mostly, I'll tell you, in my household, I ended up with 6 brothers, and I was the oldest, and so most of them had a lot of trouble saying Elizabeth when they were little, and so my dad just started calling me Liz because they could say that, and it has stuck, obviously.
But then there's Beth.
There's Beth, there's Betty, there's Bet, there's...
Right.
I mean, there's just, there's a phenomenal number of them.
But you just had one and you
Eliza.
Eliza. So anyway, sorry, that's just a human interest digression.
I wanted to just make sure people understood the story of her, and to, for me, what some of the ramifications and sort of lessons learned have been. Obviously, when they start out in talking about her in Luke, she and Zechariah are childless and older.
Right.
And one of the great lessons that I have learned throughout this study and about her is really about Zechariah too, because he went to the temple and prayed faithfully that they could have a child. In particular, he wanted a son. Now, when you put it in perspective of those days, being childless was grounds for divorce. He could have left her at any time and remarried and tried to have children. So for him to be very supportive and to stay with her all those years, to me sort of exemplified what the head of a household and the head of the faith head should be.
Right,
and so he really was a good husband. But clearly they were both very disappointed in not having a child. And so of course he the angel Gabriel comes to him when he's in the temple and says, don't worry, you will be a father, your wife will soon have a child. But he was a little skeptical
yes,
because honestly that's a normal human reaction, and he was older. And so I think he probably said, oh, okay, well, we'll see. But noting the skepticism, the angel said, well, you will remain mute until the child is born. So, and that is what happened. And then shortly thereafter, of course, she conceives and is confined because of her age. So probably 3 months before the birth, Mary, her cousin, comes to visit her and stays with her for 3 months.
Which I've always loved the image of the young and the old.
Yes.
Both pregnant for the first time in miraculous circumstances.
Yes.
Spending that time together. I've just thought that was just lovely.
Like you, I have always wondered just what some of those conversations during that 3-month period entailed. I'm sure they were praying and very happy to both have shared this because it's just in so many ways it was a common theme. As she said at the very beginning when she arrived and was greeted by Elizabeth, Elizabeth said, this child has jumped in my womb at your voice. And of course her comments became the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So, you look at what profoundness we've gotten out of that. But also, to me, it speaks to how God works. He had this plan, and instinctively, the babies knew it. Even in the womb, they knew there would be this connection, this very, very spiritual, profound, lifelong connection, which in fact there certainly was.
Yes, there was, right.
And but to really be that predictive is, I think, one of the things that I got out of it, which is to look at what happens in your life and to think about what it could mean and where it might lead, because there is a design, there is a plan.
That's a good thing. Even broader, when anything happens to us, good or bad.
That's right.
Why would God allow this or cause this to happen here and now? That's a good question to ask all
There's
the
a
time.
greater good and there is a plan.
Right.
And I think our mission is just to try to figure out what it is and how to make it work.
Right. And at the very least, even if you don't exactly know what's happening, to not thwart it.
That's right. That's right. At least not to get in the way.
Right.
And then, of course, shortly after Mary ends her visit, John is born. And what was interesting to me was the assumption was that the child would be named after the father, Zechariah, And she said, no, his name is John. And I think there was probably a little pushback. And of course, Zechariah at this point was still not speaking. So he wrote on a tablet, his name is John.
Yes.
And then, of course, as we've mentioned, the question is, was this part of the visitation, was this part of her awareness, her discernment? How did she know if he wasn't speaking?
How did Elizabeth know?
Yes,
right.
Unless, he had written it to her perhaps too. But there is that theme of this constant knowledge and awareness, and it was cast in concrete. This is what it is.
And also something in our own lives too is to get the ability to listen to the Lord so much that even if he whispers, you can hear it. Yes. And I think the people that are close to the Lord, like Mary and Elizabeth, could identify those small inspirations.
Well, when I think about what I have learned, and I think what we can all take away from the story of Elizabeth and Mary is, for me, they are always a role model of how women should help and support and believe in each other.
Yes.
And be connected, first of all, through faith. Mm-hmm. And being good and righteous and always trying to do the very best thing.
Right.
And their friendship, their relationship may have started out by blood in terms of being cousins, but I think it just became so much more than that. It became by faith,
right.
And by trust,
right.
Because they had to trust that this would all turn out well,
right? Yeah,
because it was just so very different.
Yes, yes.
For that time,
right?
And they had to believe that they knew things that as yet others did not,
right? Right.
And that gave them a very different and significant role to play.
And they were things that they really couldn't share.
No.
I mean, even if they had shared it, nobody would believe them.
Well, it would have been actually worse for them, I think.
Right, I think it would be worse for them.
Because people would have started to really wonder about their sanity.
Right.
So it was a precious secret.
Oh, yeah, precious secret. I like that.
And I think it also, for me, reinforces that, even what seems to be impossible can happen.
Right.
You just never know.
You never know.
And I will say my grandmother was exactly right. She has become more and more important to me mm-hmm. because, and I'll tell you, this started in my 20s, what I feel is a profound relationship with her, because that was when I had my first bout with cancer and learned I could not have children.
Oh my goodness.
And so...
that's young to get that kind of news.
Yes. And so I really, I think that was the source of the closeness, because I could really identify with how she felt all those years knowing, and even later in life, because she was older. So I will tell you that you think you have perhaps come to terms with it, and then at the time when all your friends are having children, but then later in life when they're all having grandchildren, it kind of surges back up again. So I could understand again where she was.
Right. Well, something else I just think, which is also something for today, is just how important it is to help young women get to know their grandmothers. Yes. Today, so often they're far away. And one of the happiest summers in my life, actually, is when I was about 10. I spent the summer with my grandparents in New York City. Of course, being in New York City was exciting.
Well, that was, yes, in and of itself.
But spending time with them, it was wonderful. And I can't even say why. I just remember loving it.
Well, and you do find what is part of the plan. I mean, throughout my life, I have sponsored children, sponsored them through schools. I have given scholarships to college, and there are many, even in our parish, there are a number of families whose children I'm very close to and spend time with, and that has been a real blessing for me. And So I guess all my life I've had the benefit of being a grandparent, being able to send them home.
Well, also, you just reminded me that, I don't know if you've studied much of St. John Paul's theology of the body, but he makes a big point of explaining how women, no matter what their situation, are, he doesn't put it this way, but mothers at heart.
Yes.
And how they have that nurturing, and it's a beautiful thing that you're able to do, to act on that in a way that really helps so many people.
Well, it's certainly what I've tried to do. I've tried to do that in my career. I teach a lot of young women, how to be successful in the workplace. That is my goal, and so it's been a mission for me.
Right.
It's one door closes, another one opens, and you just have to let yourself be open to that spirit and to see. I kept thinking, why are all these young women calling me all the time? And I thought, well, okay, let's think about it. That was my answer. Is that's what my chosen role is. Right. So for me, she has been an inspiration and a role model. I pray to her every day.
Nice. And you've been, like I said, you've been a great help to me too. Not so young, but
well, we all need a little help sometimes.
So, sort of on a lighter note, I just think it's funny to me to think about poor Zechariah who can't talk, and the two women.
I kind of thought that was part of, I'm sure that, well, I'm not sure, but I suspect that the pregnancy at her age was a little bit difficult.
Right, yeah.
And so maybe having a quiet husband was one of the few blessings she had at that time.
So funny. That's true. And Mary being not even married actually, Elizabeth could have also taught her some of the marriage thing, housekeeping and whatnot.
I think there probably was a lot of support and mutual collaboration on this.
I also hadn't thought about this before, but it is sort of funny that for John the Baptist, Zechariah was not allowed to talk, but that also Joseph never talked in the scripture.
That's right.
I hadn't thought about those two silent men.
Yes. Well, and it was kind of interesting now that you mention it, because when there is, things like that in the Bible and all of our other readings are not uncommon. When there is a woman who is the center of a message, the men do tend to be quiet. Yeah. And vice versa. So it really maybe isn't a gender thing as much as who has the message at that point.
That's a very good point. Who has the message from God? That's a very good point. Very good point. So, all right. So we're just about out of time. Anything last couple of things you'd like to say?
No. I just think I thank you for letting me share about my favorite saint.
So I also want to end before we end. I do want to say that I've gotten so many people calling, emailing, texting how much they're enjoying these studies, and I'm really glad that you're getting a lot out of it. But don't forget to read the Bible and get to know the people in the Bible. That's another reason we're doing this, is so that you can, on your own, think about the things you're reading and really get to know the people in the Bible, because you know what? They're still alive. They're still in heaven. They can have a relationship with us. We can talk to them, which is called praying to the saints, and do it.
Absolutely. So thank you.
So thank you for coming. And before I go, just if you can say a prayer for Liz and for myself and for the parish. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And God bless.